The laughter came easily that first night. It started as whispers, then soft chuckles, then the kind of polite smirks people make when they think they're being open-minded, but still don't understand what they're seeing. Outside the small Catholic church stood a few tourists, jackets zipped up against the December cold. Midnight Mass, they had been told, Christmas Eve. They expected silence, candles, maybe a choir, humming something solemn and distant. Instead, music spilled into the street. Not soft organ notes, but voices, many voices, singing with full lungs and open hearts. Children ran past the doors in red sweaters. Elderly women laughed as they adjusted paroles hanging near the entrance. Someone clapped to keep rhythm. Someone else shouted a greeting in a language the visitors didn't recognize. One man laughed and said, "This doesn't feel like church." Someone else replied, "It feels like a festival." And from the doorway, a Filipino woman smiled. Not offended, not defensive, just warm, as if to say, wait. Just wait, because this was not a performance. This was not for tourists. This was not meant to impress anyone. This was Christmas. Inside the church, the air was thick with heat and human closeness. People sat shoulder to shoulder, some standing at the back, some kneeling wherever they could find space. A baby cried, and nobody rushed to hush it. A group of teenagers whispered, then sang louder than anyone else when the hymn began. At the altar stood a priest, his vestments simple, his voice steady. When he raised his hands, the noise softened, not because people were afraid of silence, but because they respected it. For Filipinos, Christmas Mass is not an obligation. It is a homecoming. Back in the Philippines, Christmas does not begin on December 24th. It begins in September. 4 months of preparation. 4 months of songs in jeepneys. 4 months of lanterns glowing in windows. 4 months of remembering who you are and where you come from. And for those who have left home, to work, to survive, to build a better future, Christmas Mass becomes something else entirely. It becomes a bridge. Maria sat in the second row, her hands folded tight. She had been in Europe for 11 years. 11 Christmases away from her parents. 8 away from her children. She cleaned houses in the mornings and cared for an elderly woman at night. Her employers were kind, but kindness does not erase loneliness. When the choir sang, "Ang Pasko ay sumapit," her lips trembled. When the people around her sang it louder, she cried. No one stared. No one judged. Someone passed her a handkerchief. Someone squeezed her shoulder. This was church the way she remembered it. Messy, loud, alive. Outside, the French family stood unsure of what to do. Pierre had grown up Catholic, but church for him meant discipline, quiet, stone walls and the echoing footsteps. His wife, Claire, hadn't been to Mass in years. They had come out of curiosity more than faith. Their teenage daughter filmed the lanterns with her phone. Their younger son asked why everyone looked so happy. "They're singing like it's a party," Claire said, half amused, half confused. Pierre shrugged. "Maybe it's cultural." Then the doors opened wider, and the smell of food drifted out. Not incense, food. Someone had set up tables in the hall next door. Rice, stew, bread, desserts wrapped in foil. Volunteers moved quickly, smiling, guiding people like family members arriving for dinner. A man waved the French family inside. "Come, come," he said in accented French. "You are welcome." They hesitated. Then they stepped in. The Mass continued. The priest spoke of Mary traveling far from home, of Joseph, uncertain and afraid, of a child born not in comfort, but in closeness, surrounded by animals, by ordinary people, by those who had little, but gave everything. As he spoke, people nodded. They had lived this story. They had crossed oceans. They had slept in shared rooms. They had taken jobs beneath their education. They had missed birthdays and funerals and first steps. But here, tonight, they were together. The choir sang again, louder this time. Someone played a guitar, slightly out of tune. A woman clapped on the offbeat. Nobody corrected her. This wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. Claire watched as an elderly Filipino man bowed deeply before the altar, his back bent, his movements slow. A young boy held his arm, steadying him. When the man stood, the boy smiled with pride. "This feels," Claire searched for the word, "different." Pierre nodded. "It feels real." During the sign of peace, people turned to each other eagerly. Handshakes became hugs. Hugs became conversations. Strangers asked names, asked where you were from, asked how long you'd been away from home. When Pierre hesitated, a woman reached for his hand anyway. "Merry Christmas," she said, eyes shining. He felt something tighten in his chest. After communion, the church grew quiet for a moment. Not forced silence. Shared stillness. Heads bowed, eyes closed. Some whispered prayers in Tagalog. Others just breathed. This was the heart of it. Not the noise, not the food, not the laughter, but the knowing that you are not alone. After the final blessing, the noise returned instantly. Laughter, greetings, the scraping of chairs, children running. The French family found themselves seated at a table with people whose names they couldn't pronounce, eating food they'd never tasted before. And yet, it felt familiar. A woman explained each dish with pride. A man told jokes with dramatic gestures. Someone pulled out a phone to show photos of family back home. Houses near the sea. Crowded streets, smiling faces. "Do you miss it?" Claire asked softly. Every face answered before words did. "Yes, but this," the woman said, gesturing around the room, "this helps." Pierre realized then why people had laughed outside. Because they didn't understand. They thought reverence had to be quiet. They thought faith had to be restrained. They thought church had to look a certain way. But for Filipinos, faith is carried in the body, in song, in food, in community. It survives migration. It survives exhaustion. It survives loneliness. Weeks later, the French family returned, not as observers, as participants. They arrived early, helped set up chairs. Their children learned the songs phonetically, singing words they didn't fully understand but felt anyway. Claire brought bread. Pierre brought wine. And when someone laughed this time, it wasn't mockery. It was joy. Because Christmas, they learned, is not about silence. It is about togetherness. And sometimes the loudest faith is the most sincere.